Hi, I was asked to do a video taking a piece from start all the way through ready for polish on the shaping machine. So I have a piece of mangano calcite here, and I will set it up against the wheel to make sure it is thick enough, and sure enough it is. And so I will be able to use that. I'll take that down to the trim saw and we'll trim up the edges and get it to kind of a rough shape. Now that we have the piece of calcite marked out, we're going to cut along the outside lines, and the outside circle represents where I'm going to allow some slop. So in case I don't get the piece exactly centered, I will still end up with a nice round usable piece of jewelry. So let's turn on the machine. We'll turn on the pump. Wow, that machine cuts fast. I didn't do a wonderful job on the cutting. I'm doing it to the side so I kind of stay out of the view, but normally I would cut it right up against the lines of my slop, but I'm working off to the side. And besides that, it's kind of fun to watch the shaping machine do its thing. So let's go ahead and take this up to the shaping machine and clamp it in place. Okay, we are at the shaping machine and almost ready to install the piece into the phenolics. We want to make sure that there's overhang of material on both sides of the phenolic pins so they don't rub up against the wheel and get damaged. If that's not the case, then you can rotate the shaft to the right by going clockwise, and you can rotate it to the left by going counterclockwise until you're fairly well centered. Everything looks like it's centered, so the next thing I'll do is I'll hold on to the cam. I'll drop the workpiece, and then I will measure the distance from the center of the cam to the lowest point on the wheel. And in this case, it's about 1/2 inch. And that also happens to be my desired outside dimension on this piece. So we are good as far as the stop height. Now, if that wasn't correct, you can adjust this stop screw up or down. You can also use the stop plate adjustment knob to either increase the size of your workpiece by going clockwise, or decrease the size of your workpiece by going counterclockwise. And we shouldn't need to do that, but just in case, we will leave it with the lid open. It should also give you a little bit better view. I've got my marks on the Mangano calcite. So I'm going to lift the head up. I'm going to put my piece of work in the phenolic clamps, and I am going to hold them in place. Once it's in place, then I'm going to go ahead and tighten up on the phenolics, because we do not want that piece to come loose. And then we should be able to go ahead and turn on the machine. You'll notice at this point the oil is shooting out. I will start to lower the head. And I will center the spray. Once there isn't much deflection in the wheel, the part is pretty well smoothed and in its final shape. It just needs dimensions. I'll go ahead and let the wheel drop the rest of the way, and I'll let the part cut. Now if I want to make the piece a little bit smaller, I can rotate counterclockwise to make the piece smaller, and I can continue to drop the piece down to make a smaller and smaller workpiece. I don't mess much with the rotational speed. I'd rather go slow than fast. And then you can listen to the wheel and you can hear the wheel, and you can tell when it's done because it's no longer grinding material off, and everything gets fairly quiet. So at that point, I'll go ahead and lift the head. I'll move the spray. And you'll notice, and I'll turn the motor off. You'll notice when I lift the head that the cam stops turning, but we have a really nice shape here now for an earring plug. And all we need to do is to cut off the excess waste on both sides. So we'll go ahead and pull this out from the phenolic pins. You can see it holds it in there very securely and creates a very nice profile. Okay, here's an added bonus for you. I am going to go ahead and raise the head up on the machine. And I'm going to put a piece of labradorite in the phenolics and then clamp them in tight. Now this is a labradorite soap shape, so it's going to be beautiful when it's done. Right now, I just want to show you the capabilities, and I'm going to make this as large as possible. So First thing we'll do is we will turn on the machine. And then we will put the spray where it's going to be the most useful. And then we're going to go ahead and lower Now I'm going to adjust the height down a little bit. I hear points where it's hitting and points where it's not. So I want to get the piece to so it's completely round and doesn't have flat spots. That sounds like it's making a nice even cut. Okay, at this point we're going to raise it up off the head. We'll move the oil so it goes down into the reservoir instead of spraying everywhere. And we'll turn off the machine. Now, a couple things that you've probably heard on the video is that it sounded like the grinding wheel was coming into different amounts of contact on the shape. That's why I use the knob to adjust the plate, the stop plate, and dropped it just slightly, just enough so that we get a nice, smooth, even contour the whole way along this piece. I'll go ahead at this point and we'll pull it off and we'll show you. There we go. I'll pull it off. We'll show you. We have a piece of labradorite that all we need to do is to cut these two notches, smooth them out a little bit, and go ahead and make a beautiful labradorite earplug. Alternatively, we could just cut this side off and smooth it, and somebody could put the plug in their ear and they could wear the full size on the outside. As a matter of fact, that sounds like a neat idea. I think we're going to try that. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these in oil dry or kitty litter and get them dried off so they can go into the trim saw, and then we will pick back up downstairs at the PT8 where we're going to do some trimming and some smoothing. We're back at the trim saw. Our pieces have been cleaned. Boy, that labradorite's beautiful. And they are ready to get shaped. Basically, I'll give you my plan for these. On this piece, I'm going to trim off and shape on this side so that you get a nice rounded dome. On this side, I'm going to do the same thing. This side will have a little bit more material that I need to remove. And then on the labradorite, I wanted to do something a little different. I really like the end of this soap shape being a part that can stick out of the ear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this side up and smooth it out. And once it is smoothed out, I'll take a little bit of the sharp edge off of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and see if all that will just go in the tumbler and if that piece will fit into somebody's ear. I've got a gentleman at work that this might be the thing that he loves. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the trim saw, and then I'm going to turn on the pump. And one of the things I will be doing on this is I'll be using the side of this blade. There are phenolic pins under the plate to keep blade deflection down. So I'll be using this to do some rough shaping on the piece before I put it on a grinder. All right, here we go. And there I have my first piece cut off the Mangano. And then I think I'm going to change my mind and just do a little bit of the trim. Here, if we lift this up a little bit, you can see better. But essentially, we can just take the sides down. Now in this case, I'm going to stop there with this piece, and then I'll put the labradorite in, and we'll cut the labradorite. I've got a little nub there, and with the trim saw I can just take that nub, hit it against the side of the wheel, and it's good. And the other thing I'm going to do is along the edge of the labradorite, I'm going to just take it, because it has that sharp edge, and I'm just going to kind of spin it. Just to kind of smooth out that edge. Now I'll go ahead and turn off the pumps and the motors and show you where we're at. This piece I still have some work to do, so I'm going to do this on the cabbing machine. I'm going to just take this down to a nice pillow shape. Same thing with this side. on this labradorite, I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to do it a little different, and I'm going to make it flat. So I'm going to grind this as flat as I'm going to grind this as flat as I can on the cabbing machine, and then I'm going to clean up the rough along where I took off the sharp edge on the protruding portion of the labradorite, and then after that we'll be ready for tumbler. Okay, welcome to my dirty cabbing machine. I have not had a chance to set up my CB8 in the workshop yet, so right now I'm forced to use this other machine. I am really looking forward to seeing what the CB8 will do as far as water and water saturation on the wheels. So we'll go ahead and start smoothing this out. I don't like having to do this on the wheels. It's one of the reasons I'm excited for the increased water flow with the new Highland Park machine, and I'm fairly close on this. I have it down to an acceptable level. Now I'll start working on the other side. And I'm getting built up because I don't have the wheels not getting adequately saturated. And to be fair, the Mangano is not the hardest of materials, so it tends to cut pretty quick and will clog the wheel if you go too fast. I'm trying to go slow, I'm just not going slow enough on the wheel. But what we're doing is we're smoothing out all the high points with the 80 grit, taking down the big stuff. And then we're leaving a little bit of excess, because when you go to the 220 wheel, the 220 wheel is much finer, cuts much slower. And it also has to remove the 80 grit scratches. So when we're done with this phase, we'll be ready to put this into the tumbler. And I'm feeling for any bumps on this. When the material's wet, sometimes it's hard to see. And then we'll work the dome in on this. Again, I really can't wait to put the Highland Park on here and see what I can get as far as water flow. It's one of the frustrating things with using any of the other machines is you just don't get quite the water flow that you're anticipating, and it slows down your cutting, especially with soft materials. Now I'm just smoothing out the edges. I have the dome so they're pretty well equal on both sides. One more pass around to get that last little lip. And then we'll smooth out the dome. Make it so that they are both the same. And then we have a nice rounded piece. It's ready to go into the tumbler. The next one we're going to do is this beautiful piece of labradorite. I'm going to go ahead and do the edge of this on the 280. And I'm just smoothing out the chips. Make it a little bit easier for the tumbler to do its job. Lets me control the shape a little bit more. Okay, so I'm pleased with that. Now I'm going to go on to the bottom of the disc and start cleaning it up. And I'm going to go back to the 80 grit, and then I'll re-wet the wheel. Okay, now I'm going to go to the 280 grit wheel and smooth things out. Okay, I think this is ready. So there we go. Hopefully you can see that. That's the labradorite, and it's going to be flat on one side, and then it's going to have this natural on the outside. Thanks for watching. And I hope that this was helpful for you. After this point, I will dry these off and I will throw them into the tumbler. And I will use a vibratory tumbler on this, not a rotary, because I do want to have a little more control of the final shape. I always put it in the tumbler for body jewelry because those little indentations, the concave section that goes into the ear, you want that to be as smooth as possible to avoid any person getting irritation. I guess that's it. So thanks a lot for watching.